Hi everyone, good afternoon and welcome to episode 2 of the Titi Jaya Facebook Live. I'm David Chong, your moderator and host for the 5 episodes. We thank Titi Jaya for initiating and sponsoring the 5 episodes. Today we actually have 3 very prominent speakers to share a little bit about their experiences and expertise on the topic of rising from the ashes of COVID-19. What can employees and SME business owners do to survive and transform from a downturn? I'll just briefly introduce the 3 of them. First, we have Miss Vina Loh. She is the director of JLL Malaysia. Vina, can you say hi to everyone?
Hi, Veena here.
Hi. So Vina is an economist by training, having worked with the government post 1998 in the NEAC. She also has experience as a stockbroking analyst, and she was also with Malaysia Property Incorporated, which is a government entity under the Economic Planning Unit, where she was general manager to promote Malaysia properties and bring in foreign FDI in real estate. So she brings with her both public and private sector perspective. And next up, we also have Mr. Chan Leng Wai, the founder and managing director of PeopleNet Associates, a consulting firm with presence in Singapore, China, and Malaysia. Mr. Chan, would you say hi to the camera, please?
Hi.
So, Mr. Chan, very interestingly, has extensive experience in business consulting and turnaround. He was recently also the past chairman of the Port Klang Free Zone PKFZ, where he has managed to turn around the organization very quickly. He also has experience sitting on boards of public listed companies in Hong Kong and Singapore. And also we have Mr. Michael Tan. Mike, you say hi. We know him as Michael Freeman, right? From Freeman, the founder of Freeman Group. Okay, Michael is a true blue entrepreneur. He has been through ups and downs, and he's known as the millionaire property maker. Right, so he's no money down deals. Right, he speaks across Malaysia, Thailand, and Cambodia, and also in Hong Kong. He's a best-selling author, and he's also a very fantastic business coach. So I think, in the last couple of weeks, he has turned around his business to the online model. Maybe he can share a little bit of his experience as well, right?
Sure.
So thank you everyone for joining us today. Now, so maybe we can start with a bit of background to this topic first. Now, generally this topic, right, is about, it's about the viewers, it's about you. How can you as an employee and also a business survive and transform from this economic downturn? So there's some facts here on the board, about how some associations or some parties are analyzing how bad the economy can become. So some people are saying, for example, 90% drop in terms of retailers, 90% drop in sales. And SME Association is saying that 33% of its respondents only have enough cash flow to pull them through in March, and about 37.8% only can sustain themselves through April 2020. So MEF, the Malaysia Employers Federation, also said that unemployment could reach up to 2 million, right? A staggering 13% compared to previously 3.4%. We also have the Federation of Malaysian Manufacturers, right? They say that, they indicate that 78.7% of their members may need to retrench up to 30% of their employees. So I think that's it from my side. Perhaps maybe we can go to Vina. Maybe Vina can share a little bit about the overall topic from an economist point of view. Vina?
Okay. My slides, I don't have many, but it basically sums up what I think the situation is. I think some people have asked me, how severe is the situation? Is it as bad as the Asian financial crisis that we experienced in '98? Or is it more of like the SARS situation which we experienced in 2003? So I've actually compared it in a table, and if you look at the first thing globally, we can't run away from global situation because Malaysia is very much export oriented. It's a substantial, as a percentage of our GDP, is more than 100%. So it affects us, whatever happens globally. So during the Asian financial crisis, global GDP was still growing 2.6%. SARS was also growing at 2.9%. Today's situation isn't particularly good. The forecasts have been revised from 1.9% contraction by Fitch to 3% by IMF on the 14th April. Now, the global engines of growth during the Asian financial crisis was US and China. Exports was definitely still growing. It grew by 3.5%, substantially lower than the year before. Whereas during the SARS period, China was growing very strongly at 10%. Again, China's GDP of 10% was very much led by exports. But in today's situation, both the global engines of growth, which are China and US, isn't particularly growing well at all, with China about 2%, and US economy likely to be in the recession. And the situation, because of the lockdowns and movement control order in our country, has impacted trade, both imports and exports. So there's slowdown in both regionally, in Southeast Asia, as well as globally. Now, would we be facing a situation like the Asian financial crisis? I just want to say this, that during the Asian financial crisis, the situation was actually sparked by the fact there was a lot of hot money traveling into Southeast Asia. Before that, Southeast Asia was growing very strongly, and they were borrowing a lot of foreign debt. And at that time, banks were very much smaller and they were undercapitalized. And Thailand was the first to be hit. They were building large-scale infrastructure and buildings, which was not really going to be contributing to the productive side of the economy. So when the money was pulled out, their currency collapsed. So, and that had a contagion effect on Malaysia, on Indonesia. So, but the three countries affected most was Thailand, Indonesia, and South Korea. In the situation today, rest assured that the banks and insurance companies are well capitalized, and definitely, we are not in the kind of situation we experienced during that time. We have substantial international reserves as well to support our currency, even as the ringgit weakens. Now, on GDP growth, Malaysia suffered a very severe recession of 6.7% during the Asian financial crisis. Construction sector contracted 20%, and manufacturing contracted 9%. During the SARS period, very much the growth was there, 5.8%, led by the manufacturing sector. In today's situation, the official forecast by Bank Negara is negative 2% to about possibly 0.5% range of growth. Now, all sectors are affected, but there are still some growth sectors like food and beverage, pharmaceutical, glove manufacturing, and online services. Tourist arrivals to Malaysia was affected in the three periods that we see, even during the Asian financial crisis, even though there was no pandemic, mainly because the other countries were suffering. So there were less people traveling simply because they didn't have jobs, or their incomes fell. So tourist arrivals fell by 13% during the Asian financial crisis. And hotel occupancies were about 10 to 27% for 3-star hotels. 4 to 5-star hotels were about 40 to 50%. During SARS period, overall for the year, there was about 25% drop in tourist arrivals, double that of the Asian financial crisis. And occupancy rates in hotel were as low as 30%. Now, today's situation, although we don't have the latest statistics for tourist arrivals, the Malaysian Association of Hotels have targeted a 30% occupancy in the first quarter of 2020, and they are predicting occupancy rates to fall to 11%. And maybe if the MCO is lifted, rise a bit to 25%. So we are about at similar to the SARS situation for hotels. Now, on private consumption, that was holding up during the Asian financial crisis, as well as SARS. And today, we are also hoping for that to hold up our market through maybe online and other, as well as other purchases like vitamin pills and things like that. Now, for the period that we see, exports definitely was holding up Malaysia during Asian financial crisis and SARS. Now, exports are now stopped during the MCO period we have now, but fortunately, it is now relaxed for export subsectors. By this time, you would have thought that there doesn't seem to be much positive news, but rest assured that this is affecting Malaysian economy in the first half of the year. And the government has started to relax, and by Monday, we hope to see all sectors go back to work. Unemployment was 3 to 4% during the crisis, Asian financial crisis and SARS. And today, the government is only forecasting 4%, although I see that the Malaysian Employers Federation is forecasting much higher. But I would also take what they say not too hard, because when they forecasted it, they were assuming that this is going to continue, the MCO would continue to the rest of the year. But of course that would happen. Yeah, because ringgit is weakened substantially, and oil prices are quite close to that of the Asian financial crisis. But on the bright side, I think we should see a recovery within 1 to 2 years. A bit slower than SARS, but a bit faster than the Asian financial crisis. So I would think our situation is somewhere between the SARS and the Asian financial crisis, not as severe as the Asian financial crisis, but much better, mainly because we're waiting for the vaccine to come in the next 1 or 2 years' time. Thank you. And the last slide only just shows that in the event that anything happens, our banks are very well capitalized. There's sufficient capital buffers to absorb the potential losses and support lending activities so that we do not get into the kind of financial crisis that we went into before. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Veena, for the broad picture. So in light of that, right, I mean, we hear you that, you know, overall the numbers, frankly, the numbers don't look as scary as maybe some of the news headlines that they are trying to put out there, right? So basically you're saying that it's in between, right? It's most likely better than, not as bad as the Asian financial crisis, but the recovery should be a bit faster than SARS. Okay, maybe I'll just change the tone a little bit, and then before I go to Mr. Chan, maybe I'll just ask Michael this question first. I mean, Michael, you deal with a lot of employees, that come to you. Let's say, for example, they've lost their job or they're trying to transform, and also small businesses, right? I mean, based on that numbers, those numbers as well. I mean, what is the sentiment on the ground at the moment that you're feeling?
I think that Weena's research speaks a lot of volume over there, and I'm also going to say the same thing. Actually, we don't know at the moment, how severe this is going to be, because it's all. I mean, if we could have a crystal ball to look into the future, it would be great. All right. So I will put my study also relatively between the Asian financial crisis Can be worse, can be better, but it's definitely worse than SARS, right? It's definitely worse than SARS. SARS technically had very little impact. Even the 2008 subprime crisis in the US had basically no impact to us, right? So I would place this even worse than that. But to question yourself whether is this going to be worse than 1997, and let me share with you. I mean, at the time, I wasn't really into the market yet. But if you say that right now, I would say that 1997 would be the benchmark we're all looking into, and we hope that it won't happen that way. There's a severe amount of job losses at that time as well. So it all is a question mark on right now whether do we find a vaccine in time. So this is this huge debate we're going on right now, especially in US. We are all pumping out a lot of news saying that they're going to do huge funding and increase on the reduce on the trial time periods and make sure there's something rolling out by at earliest the third quarter of the year, right? So that's what they're expecting right now. But if should that not happen and it will actually last the next year, then the severity of this would then prolong, right? So the question you gotta ask yourself is, and a lot of people are asking right now, is in anticipation of all this, are we prepared for it? Also, don't forget that if you look against other statistics in the past, this is a pandemic, which is a health problem. It is not something that is manageable and measurable in terms of finances. It's not because of a bank. It's not because of the economy. It's not because of someone messing around with the numbers that we are having this kind of problems. So if it's a health issue, the question you ask is reoccurrence. Will there be another lockdown? We can state many examples right now already. Singapore, where it was safe once upon a time, now has been in a lockdown for 2 months. We have had reoccurrence in China with Harbin being in lockdown right now. We have also reoccurrence in Japan, where they're in Hokkaido. They have also had a clampdown. They have also a quarantine period right now. So as this progresses on, it will actually, the stretch of things will then definitely strain the economy and also strain the pockets of people at the moment. So me on the ground, what I've seen even in these 2 months, actually it was interesting, and I don't know if I can quote this on TV or not, but on live or not, but with the continuous extension of the MCO periods, right, we could see a lot more strain on many of the SMEs. Okay, many of these SMEs started to then start suffering. When it was the first 14 days, everyone was very relaxed about it, saying, oh, okay, it's a matter of a few weeks that we will see ourselves come up, and definitely like what Rina has actually mentioned over there, the first 1 month is actually quite okay for many SMEs. You can actually survive. But as you go on to the next month, and by the way, even though it's first month is March, it's end of March, we consider it as one working month because the payroll comes out on that month of March. So as you extend it to the second month, then what happens is you now stretch the dollars and the savings of many of the small companies over there. And what I've experienced right now is a high rate of a lot of the employers starting to do pay reductions, right? So there's a lot of pay reductions over there. There's also a lot of job losses. As a matter of fact, I have friends in the tourism line and the hospitality line. Those are the hardest hits. I would say the figures of 4%. Now that is actually quite surprising. From on the ground, maybe it's because of my peers and all the business people around here. I would say the figures are much higher. But as of course, it's industry related. So in the hotel line, hospitality line, we've already counted 21 hotels on an overall, which has shut down. The major ones, right? We are talking about 4-star, 5-star hotels. In Malacca, we have the biggest one over there. We have also the one in Ipoh, which is also a Xuan Hotel, which is also
yes.
Yeah, there's 150 people unemployed at the moment because of that. We have companies like Blue Ink, which is the largest publication company in Malaysia, has shut down, and 200 of the employees have then just the jobs have just lost. So I'm seeing figures like this roll in right now, and I'm actually relatively concerned because that really stresses out the economy as a whole. I don't think that. However, I want to note that the government is actually doing a good job with the stimulus packages and helping a lot as much as they can. So now there's a question of this thing going on within. Assistance from the government, the lockdown periods, as much, and also the question of when the vaccine is going to come in, right? And until that comes out, this is going to be a major concern, and I would say there'll be more further disruptions in the market. So I think that for me right now, I'd rather be prudent about it and tell everybody over here, if you're watching this right now, to go out there and take offensive actions. Go out there to be defensive, go out there, save as much money as possible. But the second thing has to happen is, for me, I always tell people right now that get yourself into a point where you can either find a additional source of income, or actually, what I just mentioned that now, save as much money as possible, because we don't know how long this is going to last. Seriously, we don't know.
Okay, thanks for that, Michael. And then maybe we'll get some input from Mr. Chan. Mr. Chan, from your side, what do you think in terms of businesses, your clients and peers, etc.? I mean, how is the sentiment on that side?
Okay, first off, let me say, I'm going to say thank you to TT Jaya and Mr. David Chong for inviting me to this forum. Warm hello to my fellow speaker in the forum, Ms. Rina Loh and Mr. Michael Tan. I am not a working economist, right? So I don't know what the number is going to be. All I know is that I think it's going to be a drastic economic disaster for the world, and not just Malaysia. I tend to share a bit more of Michael's view, that it is not going to be a short term, or like some of the economics figures show, maybe like you say, a 4% down. But then when you look at economic figure, they often don't tell the story on the ground, in the sense that it is a very high level. It takes into account a lot of very big industry or big businesses, right? Whereas if I think Michael comment, maybe he's looking more at the SME, which is generally my focus, I think they are very, very badly hit, right? I think if you look at some of the numbers that you have presented, SME Association forecasts about 1/3 of the SME will not survive the 1 month MCO. Another 1/3 will not survive if there's a 2 months MCO, right? So and when we say MCO, we don't mean that, like, let's say next week we are easing the restriction. Doesn't mean that it's all over. There's still a lot of restriction, right? I mean, a lot of businesses are still not allowed to be open. Even if restaurants are open, they have to practice safe distancing. So it is a big impact on their revenue.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think it is going to be very serious. So, I mean, if you look at the cartoon on the screen right now, I mean, basically what the message is, we are trying to swim away from the COVID-19, and by imposing lockdown and restrictions, we are heading towards economic disaster. Right? If I may talk about the challenges facing the business. Oh, by the way, just backtrack a bit. I think when we had our first meeting to discuss about the format of the forum and things like that, I think one of the questions that was asked was, what are you guys doing during this MCO, right? So about 2 or 3 times a week, I will place a mug of beer in each of the room in my house. Then I go bar hopping. In the first 6 weeks of the MCO, I actually wrote a 4-part series on surviving and recovering from the pandemic. Our focus was really a lot on the SME and employees, because I think a lot is already written for the large company. A lot of macro statistics is being shared. What I felt was missing was basically, what is the layman take on the whole thing, and how do you tell a layman how are they going to recover from this crisis, right? By the way, I posted this 4-part series in my LinkedIn. You can search for my name and you're free to download it. What I'm going to share today, I'm not going to go through all the points because it's actually a lot. I'm just going to run through some of the critical ones. I think, like I said earlier, there is complete and drastic fall, right, in the revenue for many industries. I think Michael mentioned like the travel industry, tourism industry, the retail industry, even the F&B, and don't forget the energy industry. Oil price has dropped to $11 or $12, and it's going to be very low for a sustained period of time. The supply chain is very bad, very severely disrupted, right? And that has a multiplier effect. Definitely many companies will retrench. I think you showed MEF numbers, in terms of retrenchment, suspension, and pay cut and things like that. Rent, operating costs, utilities still have to pay. The good news maybe for some people is that I think the cost will all drop also. Loan have to be paid. On this, I do have to say the Malaysian government did a good job by talking to the financial institution to have an automatic 6-month loan repayment moratorium. That helps a lot, right? But after the 6 months, you still have to pay. And if I may make an appeal to the Malaysian government here, I think the government should be talking to the financial institution to put up a credit insurance scheme whereby they can tell the financial institution to relax the loan criteria, especially to the SME. Because today, if you ask the SME to apply for loan from the financial institution, most of them won't meet the loan criteria, right? But if the government puts up a credit insurance scheme, then the financial institution can relax the loan criteria, and then maybe more of the SME have a chance to survive. Otherwise, many of them will have to close, or some of them may have to refer to the underground loan market. And I have actually read reports that says that even the loan sharks are being very selective about who they want to lend money to. Right? I think the other thing is that obviously if you're running a business, if you have given out credit, you have to expect delay in your repayment and even some bad debts. And after the lockdown, it is not as easy as just going back to your outlet or your office, clean it up, turn on the electricity, turn on the aircon. I think there will be critical supplies shortages and non-critical supplies shortages. It will be at least a few weeks before your business can run smoothly. Yeah.
Thanks to all. I mean, I think it's a good start. I mean, we have the broad numbers from Vina as an economist, and then from Michael on the ground, what are people facing, and Chan as well on the SME side. Vina, I'm just wondering, right? I mean, it looks like based on what you're presenting, this time the government may not have any banking liquidity issues, right? At this moment, you shared a slide earlier that the banks and insurance are well kept. They have adequate funding, right? So just wondering, right, in your opinion on the broad steps, right, what do you think of the steps that the government is doing at this moment, the last 4 to 6 weeks? Do you think they're doing enough in your personal opinion? Or, any ideas that they can do more?
They have actually given the largest stimulus package in history as a percentage of the GDP, larger than US, Japan, and the largest in the region that I've seen. So I think we should not be looking to the government for more, simply because when the government spends more than what it has, not only do you have the deficit problem, it's the future generation that would have to pay for it. You are just borrowing from the future generation. And to what purpose is this? To save the older generation who are most susceptible to this virus, bearing in mind that, the older generation like me, that there's a limited lifespan I can live. So I would not recommend, if I were in the policy side of things, to go ahead and spend more. We just have to be brave and go about doing things and keep doing what we should be doing, wearing masks, doing social distancing. It is a balance that the government has to do to allow businesses to go back to work, because then otherwise people will have no jobs. Yeah.
Okay, thanks for that. Okay, maybe, after hearing for all three, maybe we look at a little bit about, solutions. Since the topic today is about, what can employees and SME business owners do to survive and transform? So maybe we would like to ask all the speakers a little bit about, what can they do to survive, being the first thing that they need to do. Michael, any comments on that, on employees and businesses? What can they do to survive?
I think that right now, thanks for the question, David. I think that this is a very crucial question that I want to state out for a lot of people because, like what Veena has also mentioned right now is that I think the government has done enough right now. And I think it's sorry to say, I'm going to rephrase this right now, and probably people are going to kill me for this, but I think it's a good thing that the crisis came about because there needs to be a tremendous shift in the whole economy. In China and many other places, especially in China right now, if you've gone there, you think that China is actually behind us. If you've gone to China in the recent years, you see that they've done tremendously well. especially on the online platform and in the e-commerce space. Even simple things like delivery, they have it at a call of a button, even e-payments and e-wallets. So this has been lagging in our economy until today, and a lot of the SMEs are actually suffering right now because they're not connected to the customers. I think we've been too complacent in many ways, having the luxury of people driving to you and seeing you and face to face. And I think this crisis really forces many of the SMEs, many of the entrepreneurs, right, to really shift their focus, shift the way how they do business, how they interact with customers into this online space, right? And I think the good news about this, and what I want to share about this, I always see the silver lining about this as well, is that if the SMEs especially, and even the large corporations in Malaysia are able to put themselves into the cyber world, in the cyberspace, I think that gives us much more leverage to also work on beyond the boundaries of Malaysia. Let's look about it. That is actually potentials over there as well. So definitely it is a must for transformation to happen. There is a huge general transfer of wealth between those that are unable to do so to those that embrace this at a very early stage. Me myself, I'm talking from a perspective of an offline business owner. I mean, I'm not talking about this and condemning businesses. I hope you don't mind, but I'm in the event space, and even after this, with the social distancing and all, my business will be badly affected because I'm unable to do events. I'm able to have meetings of such. So it was very early adoption in my stage, where I got in people, experts to actually get into my business and transform it to put it into the online. And surprising as it is, and this is also the statistics actually showing right now, those businesses that went on with early adoption actually saw an increase in their business rather than a decrease, right? Because there is still demand. People are still willing to spend. It's just that we're not able to connect with them. And if you're able to do that on a very fast pace, you should be able to go out there and actually survive, if not thrive, during this time. So definitely a must for a change.
I completely agree with you actually on this online thing, and the way people should think about how to do their business. There actually is a lot of opportunities because there's so much suppressed demand. There are people in the house who want things, they just can't get it, Yeah, for example, I mean, if the convenience stores can offer also, fruits and all that, maybe they need larger formats, Yeah.
Yes. I want to share one more story over here. It's very funny. I mean, this is just on the ground. I have a friend who runs a nursery, the selling garden, the plants, potted plants.
Yeah.
So I was like worried for him. So I think this month, 2 weeks ago, I actually contacted him and said, it's been a month, So I said, wow, I'm hoping this guy is doing okay because, potted plants and all, people, it's a very feely, to me, it's a very feely, touchy kind of business. You kind of need that, drive your car there, carry the pots and bring it home, right? Yeah. So I texted him 2 weeks ago. I said, hey, are you okay? How are you doing? I know, do you need any help? Maybe I can, support you a bit or something. And he's all the way from Penang, so obviously I can't buy from him. And he texted me back. He said, Michael, I'm busy. I can't talk to you. I go like, huh? I said, why? He told me, I said, oh my gosh, my sales has gone up the roof. I go like, wow. I said, why? And he said that he did this earlier on before the MCO, but he actually had this website on, and he put everything on a website already, and his sales just took off. Can you believe that? Nursery, I wouldn't imagine buying nursery stuff, but is it people are buying soil, people are buying plants and asking for delivery, everything, and he's doing 10,000 of sales per day. All right, that's better than what he usually does in a normal day. So, it is surprised that this pent-up demand, if you connect the dots, you should be able to actually thrive in economies like this. And there are people still looking for many things out there, even in terms of properties and anything else. I've seen and heard many of these conventional businesses. When you plug online, the demand just comes in.
I see. Interesting. What about Mr. Chan? I mean, any thoughts on the really interesting story, Michael? I mean, what about Mr. Chan? Any comments on that? Any solutions you think that businesses can adopt or employees can adopt?
I think what both Rina and Michael has commented about the online platform, definitely true. I think the business, lifestyle, and communication online platform has been creeping up, right? And I think that what this crisis does is it causes a paradigm shift. when we come out of this crisis, the online platform will become the dominant and mainstream way of doing business, the way we are alive, the way we communicate. There's no doubt about it. I mean, now our forum today, for example, is on Zoom, right? And really, it's because of the lockdown that Zoom really took off in the last 2 months. It has been coming up, but in the last 1.5 months, it just took off like crazy. And I think today or yesterday, Google announced they're going to provide their Meet, which is like their Zoom video conferencing for free over the next few days. Right. So all these things are happening. And if you say, is there any advice? I would say anybody running a business better start looking at online platform. Like Michael said, the interesting thing is when the MCO started, a lot of people in Malaysia were not prepared for it, a lot of businesses. The good thing was within a very short period of time, I think within a couple of weeks, you start to see, not online maybe, but webs on WhatsApp, people start sending messages to say, okay, I can provide fruits, all right? I can provide this, I can provide bakeries item, you know? And so when we are talking about online or internet, we are not talking just about a website anymore, right? We are talking about WhatsApp or WeChat, you know, and all these things are already happening. And I am not as gung-ho as Michael to say, hey, this is a good thing, you know, they push it over, but I think it does cause a shift in how we have been doing business. Yeah.
So basically, the pandemic is like a catalyst, right? Whatever that, you know, they're forced to move forward, right? Whether they have a choice or not, they have to.
They have to.
Veena, Veena, what about, you know, some of the other industries? Like, we know that, you know, I know that you do quite a lot of research for, you know, for example, landowners and large funds, right? That wants to invest and develop. So what about those sectors? I mean, do you see a lot of what do you call it, demand, or still people coming in to look for solutions in terms of research and things like that?
Definitely for research and consultancy, we are, whenever there's uncertainty, we get more queries and more work. But of course, when it actually comes to investment, which is not our department, different departments, it's tougher to do, because usually these people would actually want to have a look at the site, you know, have a feel of the place, you know, whether the crowd is coming to the building or not, that sort of thing. But again, even for big time investors, there are all these things called crowdfunding. There's fintech. You know, those things will also do well. And I think there's also an area when fintech can also help SMEs, you know. It's just that nobody's out there to champion all that. Definitely, I can see there is a lot of things that can be offered in the market. Even, you know, salespeople, they can actually try and help you market online. There's a lot of opportunities that I can see. Yeah, but it's just the people are just not coming out to do it yet.
I see. Yeah. All right. And then maybe back to Michael a bit. I mean, very interesting thing you mentioned earlier about the nursery, right? And then the fact that, you know, some people perhaps previously they had the luxury to be a little bit more complacent, but now because, you know, maybe revenue is not coming in, right? The MCO lockdown, right? So people that are really, let's say, affected, right? Employees and businesses, right? Some businesses, you say, okay, they try to go online, but can all businesses do that or not? What if they're in a form of more traditional business? What would you suggest they do?
Actually, I've noticed this already, and I'm not sure if it's all can be done, but what I've noticed is that most consumer-based businesses tend to be having a higher chance of survival because of this. Other businesses, B2B, I think then they will have to start to reach out a little bit more. Business to business kind of platforms are a little bit tougher. I will have to say that the online, you know, the e-commerce business is not suitable for everyone. But maybe I want to kind of share one of these diagrams I have. I have a whole series of this, but I just want to keep it simple right now.
Sure.
So just allow me to share this one quick one. So if you notice over here, and I think a lot of people have actually seen this before. This is the chart whereby they say the potential losers and the potential winners over here. And if you can see that And it's not a 50-50. It's not a 50-50. The green ones are basically in the medical services. You know, we've got about retail foods, personal hygiene, healthcare. ICT is telecommunication and e-commerce. So we have actually about 5 winners over here. We have a majority of the rest on the other side. And it's not a balanced 50-50. It's more like 70-30. 70 on the losing or in the neutral zones. And I would say that 30% is on that side. But if you look into this, then you talk about tourism, you talk about aviation, automotive, and real estate. What this means when you say e-commerce is that basically you shouldn't change your industry. I would say that in real estate, you can still do it. In automotive, you can still do it. In finance and education, you can still do it. But what you do is you just plug that into under the umbrella of e-commerce. You know, e-commerce is just like a platform. So if you're able to transform that, then you're able to still run your business as per se. It's just a different way of communicating with people. However, but you know, the large hit ones like aviation, you can't fly a plane online. Let's just put it this way. We can't put a person from one computer screen to another computer screen and then you come out in France or something. So in terms of aviation and maritime, really logistically on those sites, you will have to look into either if you're unable to transport humans, then you may want to look into logistics because there's this huge demands for the logistic market. The one thing I want to share over here with this is that the ones that are thriving is actually in the logistic market. Huge, okay? They are actually doing very well. And what I would say that, like in tourism, it will be a shift. So if you look into this side, which is the medical supply and services and the healthcare and personnel, many of these normal providers of tourism, to give you an example, is just a shift of economy. So don't even just focus on e-commerce. Many of them are now opening up what we call quarantine hotels. Right, there is a need for inbound visitors coming in. There's export. We call it the exports of cases that are coming into Malaysia. What happens is then the government requires them to be quarantined for 14 days. So I know hotels like in Sunway, they've actually done 2 rounds already of quarantines. Right, they provide their hospitals for quarantines, services for inbound visitors or returning Malaysians, and that is actually quite a large volume over there. A second thing they can do is go into the sanitization business. So they mobilize their force into different industries, providing sanitization services as well. So it can be done. It can be done. It's just that there has to be a shift of how they are going to look into things. And under the e-commerce banner, I don't think it's that hard for them to actually get into it, I would say. Because what I do notice is that right now during the MCO period, this is the thing that I also tend to agree with now here, is that we don't feel the pinch yet, surprisingly. I mean, with all this unemployment and everything, and even in the reduction of our income, staying at home for most majority of people, we're actually saving money. I don't mind telling you, I'm surprised, I put 200 ringgit in my wallet. I opened today, I still have about 200 ringgit, It's like I only paid a little bit for food and here and there, but it's safe. And then don't forget, petrol now is so cheap and we don't even travel. So, it's literally, I was thinking, wow, I can actually retire in a quite small amount of money, forgetting that I have a loan, forgetting I have many things to pay. So people can, and why am I saying that is because people are still willing to spend. I want to quote one last example. Maybe it's in a different reference because I'm also in the investment world. In the past, if you've tracked our KLSE, okay, our stock exchange, we're doing fairly well. If you looked into it, we have actually rebounded since March until today. And I was googling and I was talking to my investor friend about this, and this is the interesting remark. He said the reason why the KLSE actually rebounded is for a very simple fact. If you actually look into it, and it was true, okay? If you look into it, the time that it started to rebound was the beginning of the MCO. All right, so what happened during that time was many people had nothing to do at home. They started to go online and trade it in the market. So, and there's statistics on this. There's actually larger amount, an increase of maybe 30 to 50% of retail investors in the stock market as compared to previous times. So you'll be surprised that people, online, and again, this is something you can do online. So many people went online and started to trade. So people do have I believe that the consumer power is still there at the moment. So I would feel that for many SMEs, all you gotta do is tap into it, and there's a potential.
Okay, very cool. Interesting. It's true. Online now, you see a lot of stock classes. They always said, take this opportunity now. People sign up and then open up accounts. To do at home. Yeah, and then okay, Mr. Chan, maybe more about recovery. Since we're also about solution based, do you have any input about what business can do in terms of recovery?
Okay, I think we have harped a lot on the e-commerce side and the online side. Definitely, it is probably one of the most important um, channel going forward. In fact, I covered that in my 4-part series. What I want to touch on maybe is something that has not been covered. And if you look at the slide I have, it's really on point 2 and 3. Is that with the many businesses that will fail, especially a lot of SME and even a lot of large company, it will create the disruption in the supply chain. I think if you're running a business, you need to try to pick a niche in the disruption that fit your strength and build on that, right? The other very, very important thing is that while we are optimistic and talking about new businesses that we can do and things like that, I honestly think that within the next 24 months at least, maybe one of the most important thing any business can do is to reassess and restructure your business to a much lower revenue base. I honestly think that if anybody is still planning on recovering to the same level that they were in the next 6 months or so, I think that is honestly really dreaming. You need to assess and cut your costs, okay? Restructure your business. If you have maybe a 20% less revenue, maybe 30%, or even maybe 50% less revenue, can you survive? How do you survive based on that reduction in revenue? I mean, the rest of the point, I think the other speaker covered it on and off, and they are covered in my 4-part series, so I'm not going to take up that much time talking about it. But these are the 2 points that I would like to emphasize to all business owner. And I think if you are an employee, for example, this is actually a very crucial period because I think the unemployment figure presented earlier by David, MEF say that, yeah, there could be as many as 2 million people who will not be employed due to this lockdown and the continuing restriction. And don't forget, like we say, one of the things that I keep coming back to, a lot of business will not restart after the lockdown, okay? And many more, even after the lockdown, they may restart, but they will close during this restriction period because they find they can't continue with the lower capacity, right? So I think as an employee, well, first off, you've got to stay healthy and well. That's very important. But your attitude is going to be the most important, right? What are you going to do? How are you going to help your employer? How are you going to help yourself? And I think you need to be very flexible in what you're willing to do and what type of pay or what type of benefits you want to take in the next 24 months. I mean, if you still have a job, that's great. But I think a lot of company, even if you have a job, is going to ask for pay cuts, right? Or lesser working hours and things like that. And if you have a job coming out of the lockdown, doesn't mean that you are secure because, like I said, I strongly believe that in the next 24 months, there will be a lot more closure of business. My biggest concern is still the SME, right? They are the backbone of our economy. And if not enough help is extended to them, many of them, in fact, I think most of them may fail. And we will really be much poorer because of that. Yeah, thank you.
Sure. So thanks for the input to all the speakers here about about some tips on how to survive, how to transform as well. I mean, maybe we will go a little bit to the property market. I think a little bit about the property market. People like always interested in real estate. Veena, for JLL, right? I know that we know that JLL does a lot of commercial spaces, etc. I mean, what is your thought about that area? Commercial spaces, office spaces, retail malls, moving forward post MCO. How big would the transformation of landscape be for Malaysia?
Of course, there are some sectors would suffer a lot more than others. The obvious being the shopping malls and the hotels. The offices are not so bad. They're quite neutral. in a sense, residences also should be relatively resilient at this time. But of course, logistics would do the best. And you also have the industrial that caters to the growth industries like pharmaceuticals and glove and all the medical equipment. That would do very well. But if you are in a situation where you are cash flow strapped, then I think the point that he pointed out in his slides, alliances, very important. Joint ventures, very important. If you had a piece of land and you don't have the money, maybe you can joint venture with someone who can build for you. You know, at a time like this, maybe if your shopping centers is empty, you may just for this year or so allow some sort of self-storage, warehousing, just temporarily, just for 1 or 2 years, you know, just to buy you that kind of time and cash flow to see you through. Yeah, so you have to look a little bit, especially if you're an SME and you really don't have the capacity. For example, I think the Cameron Highlands, I think that message has been floating around. The farmers just couldn't sell their products, you know, and in the end, Lazada came in and helped them sell, package it in a small package and sell it online. So yes, you need to look out for help and not just go with your own model. There are a lot of potential collaborators you can work with, but you have to go out there and get them.
I see. So logistics, right? Industrial and, you know, alliances to take out about, look at alliances to redevelop.
Yeah.
And then maybe I'll pose this question to Michael as well. Just like Mr. Chan mentioned about SME being the backbone, etc. You know, if SMEs, you know, don't make it, and all these commercial space that they use, whether small retail lots, example, or office spaces. I mean, based on your feel on the ground, Michael, so far, what is your take? Commercial and residential overall. Would you like to comment?
I think if you may, let me backtrack a little bit to then understand, so that when I do share my concerns on where the spaces are and where the opportunities are, then you may understand a little bit. I think it always goes back to the consumer behaviors. It always goes back to the economics of the country. And then by saying that, then we have to study, well, okay, there's this thing going around, floating around, you know, after MCO, there's going to be this new normal. You know, I was talking about this new normal. So if you would understand how people will behave after we get out of our jail, so-called, that would actually then be, for me, the man on the ground, right? That would be the easier way for me to predict how it would impact the market as a whole, right? So I've got some slides for this. I'm going to just do it very quickly, if you may. Okay.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
there was this. Okay. So basically, what happened is, you know, with the current reduction of the cases, which is going down right now, okay, so we have all this, which is just newly been said. This is the list of activities which are not going to be prohibited when we get out in the 4th of May. These are things that you're not going to be able to do, as you can see over here, you know, for entertainment, for exhibitions, for even education, and even in sports. Right, these are all things that you cannot do. Right, social activities. You can't go on cruise ships. Right, I won't go through them one by one, but you can see. Okay, even in the retail and accessory in fashions, you're not allowed to do fitting of clothes. Right, you're not allowed to do Dobi where you cannot, especially for the 24-hour Dobi shops. You can't go out there and fold the clothes. No events, no seminars. All right. Many of this list. Okay, so these are kind of the things that will be the new normal, meaning these are prohibited activities which you're not allowed to do. So coming into here, and if you can see this, then you're going to have 5 changes in the normal that I'm actually speculating right now. And this is going to be a big impact. So number one, don't even have to talk into the list. The first thing right now is the focus right now for even in any other countries, focus on hygiene and cleanliness. You're definitely going to go out there with more masks, sanitizers, and gloves. So you might see that as an opportunity for some of the economies, but you also see that as one of the restrictions, especially into restaurants and F&Bs. right? There'll be, so we go to the next part, which is social distancing. There'll be social distancing rules will be administered. Even right now, they were saying that even in the restaurants, you must be seated 1.5 meters away. When paying at the cashier, you'll be, I don't know how we're going to measure this. Probably going to all have to take 1 meter long rulers around. So we have to be 1 meter away from the next person paying, right? So these are all going to be the new norms. But by saying all this, that what that means is also there's going to be a reduction of crowds, right? And in crowded places like in retail malls and all these kind of things, you're going to get an impact. You're going to have people not going to places like this, right? Which will then impact the market itself, right? Working from home is a new trend. So now then this again would then reduce footpath frequencies in many of these commercial areas and retail areas, right? Again, home delivery will then, of course, improve for logistics sides of things and warehousing. So you will have to see the trends and how it impacts the markets. This will be definitely the new thing to come. We are still not allowed to have even traveling within the country. There are restrictions. You are not allowed to balik kampung, okay, even during the Raya periods. So then you will have huge amount of restrictions, and that will definitely be a continuous hit on the hospitality business, right? Even after the MCO. So this is going to be something that I think that if you're talking about, a lot of people are talking about what kind of properties you want to buy in terms of holiday resorts, and all those kind of properties, you can say a no at the moment. And last but not least, of course, you have stress and anxiety. So this is also due to loss of income and jobs. So by saying all this, then you go back to then the economy hits. So the four impacts of the economy will be coming into here, and therefore this will then impact the property market. So entertainment industries. So then again, when you talk about movie theaters, concerts, sports events, we're probably going to be talking about retail malls. This will be, but that will be coming out next thing. Hospitality, definitely. So we talk about transport hubs, hotels, resorts. Okay, this retail part is actually my biggest concern because I think this will be one of the largest hit. Unfortunately, I think shopping will never be the same again, at least until we find a vaccine, right? It'll be a quick in and out. Even if you do get to go to shopping malls, even you see nowadays, even just for a quick grocery run, it can be a long queue that takes you an hour before you buy the next fruit basket or something, or vegetables. So that's going to be definitely a huge impact in terms of the retail market. When rentals when income do get infected, then if rentals are not reduced, then you start seeing a lot of this folding up. And as you can see from even in all of this over here, we have not talked about luxury wear or even fashion wear. We're not talking fashion nowadays. And let's just put it right now. I'm not going to show this on picture, but I can see me in a coat and a shirt, but I could be sitting in my shorts right now. So fashion wear is not going to be one of the biggest thing on the person's head at the moment. So that's going to definitely hit the market, and that will come to the last part, which I've started to see already, where factories are starting to close. So if you see into all this, then basically with the economic standpoint, on the new consumer habit standpoint, then I would say that the first thing to hit would most probably be on the retail market, and largely the commercial sector as well, right? Logistics, yes, like what Rina has mentioned, that yes, that would be thriving, but that would be the first hit. I would say right now the biggest hit is during this MCO period, because of the impact to the SMEs and also to the businesses at large. The second hit would come after the moratorium, because the moratorium has given us a lot of installment holiday. So a lot of people don't feel that coming in yet, and by far debt is the biggest expenses in many of our pockets right now. It takes up to 30% to 50% of a person's wages. So if that would be reintroduced in the month of September, we would then start to see some impact in the residential market as well. So it's probably a timeline of things to come.
I see. Thanks for that, Mike. I think that one is a very interesting picture, how it's the linkage of everything, right? Looking at the industry, how to forecast the possible movement of properties and demand. Interesting. Yeah. And then Mr. Chan, maybe we have a 5 minutes more. Maybe we'll just go to one round to all the speakers. So, Mr. Chan, I mean, any last points for people out there, employees and also business owners trying to survive and trying to transform in these tough times for them? You know, any last advice? Any advice you can give them? Any,
I mean,
like share?
I would put it, sorry, I would put it as good news
Mhm.
in the sense
Okay,
that
sure. Let's go to good
forget
news.
about all the millions of people who are going to be employed. Just focus on yourself and make sure you survive the next 24 months.
Mhm.
This pandemic will blow over, right?
Mm.
When? We don't know yet. The reports about a vaccine being developed, I think the most optimistic medical expert that have declared on it says, you know, it is 12 to 18 months. In fact, a lot of them say a vaccine needs to protect the people. You cannot do trial on people until you are extremely confident that it won't harm the people in the long run. So she said it takes years. But so let's take 12 to 18 months optimistically. In the meantime, we will have mitigation. We have restriction, we will have some mitigation measures in place, right? We will have to live with some of the restriction. But the other really good news is that the world is more resilient today than it was even maybe 10, 20 or 30 years ago, right? I mean, we look back at, for example, the Asia financial crisis. When it happened, everything went down until Malaysia said, okay, we're going to shut our door economically, right? And basically that was what our PM did at that time. He actually basically shut down Malaysia from the rest of the world. At that time, we had no loan repayment moratorium. I remember that very clearly because at that time I had about 5 properties, and basically, I think like when my tenant left, I was basically left holding the property with no new tenant at all, right? You just have to carry 5 properties through that entire period. Today, I think the technology and the business move a lot faster. I'm not going to say fast in the sense that, oh, within 6 months we will turn around. And I think that even within 24 months, we will not get back to what we were before the pandemic. But at least we will have more resemblance of normal, more resemblance of recovery in the next 24 months. And at the end of it, if you have the reserve in place, or if you can do a job that is everything is online, you can go down to the beach and enjoy yourself. It's a lot cheaper during this period of time. Okay, and smile and be optimistic. And we will be this crisis will blow over. The world will not come to an end, and we will all survive this together. Thank you.
Thanks for that. Thanks for the, the final points as well. Yeah, very interesting. Going to the beach, I think for people that are fully online, Michael, I think you can also consider. Yeah, I know you're doing a lot of online training now from the house, right?
Yeah.
Veena, before that, Veena, so any last input or advice out there for employees and businesses trying to transform and survive?
Okay, I just want to put a timeline to this. Taking a lesson from the past in 1918 when we had the Spanish flu, and there was absolutely no vaccine at the time. So eventually people did develop an immunity against it, and it took 2 years. So the worst that will happen is in 2 years, we will be immune, and even without a vaccine. Okay, so keep our hopes up.
So if it's like the Spanish flu, maybe something at one point will just go away, right? When we
herd immunity.
Immunity, yeah.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, Michael. I mean, any last words of advice to people out there, entrepreneurs, business owners, facing challenges, trying to survive and transform?
I'm probably going to come from a point of an entrepreneur and investor as myself. I just want to share a little bit of my background. I was a so-called survivor of the 2008 crisis. It didn't impact a lot of you guys, I'm sure, but for me, I was in the financial industry and I just was suffering out. I was just coming up from my business, which I was almost bankrupt from. So 2008 was a very, very important time in my head where I was poor, very, very poor during that time. And I would say that crisis was a blessing to me, meaning that because I was so impacted by it, I actually took active steps to get out of it and to become who I am today. I'm currently an investor and I do have a large sum of properties and assets, and it all because of the point where I didn't take it from, I like how Mr. Chan has said it, look on the optimistic point of things, because it really can go on and you can really win in this kind of time. So I want to share this last diagram I have. I've done this. It is theoretical because we don't know the future, but I just want to share with you guys. And if you and I always tell people that these are all choices that you have. How you look at things will define your future. Don't let the economy of today define it. So if it's okay, I'll just share this very quickly, right? So I always say this, it's like in the Matrix, Matrix has two choices. You have three choices. So I always tell people you have three choices. If, let's say, for example, choice number one you take is you do nothing, then what you do is you go with the flow. We don't know what the future may be. I mean, I can't predict it to be good nor bad. Neither I don't think anybody else over here can. But let's just take the worst of things. Assuming that we are in a crisis right now, and you take this timeline, so you'll be probably, and this is what many of us have been done. I think there's a study and they call it the crisis shock. I think many of us have been paralyzed by it at this point. And if you continue to stay paralyzed, then that's the problem. You do nothing. And assuming that the economy does go down, then you have to wait for government assistance, okay? Then you end up doing nothing, watching Korean drama on Netflix or even trolling the YouTube or Facebook. But if the economy continues to go down, then you come to a point whereby and you're in the worst opposition, then what happens is you continue to blame. You can blame the government, the boss, your mom, or dad. And I just write it down. That's what people may tend to do. So, like I said, I from my point of view, I think the government has done greatly already, but I think it's time for us to do something else. But assuming you take the path of do nothing, and assuming that the economy continues to go forward with this kind of negative point, especially with the COVID-19 not finding a vaccine, then you will get to a point of low, right? I will assume that with new jobs coming in the market, we'll have a lower pay, etc., coming in. So this is where you follow the market. Now, I like the other part of it is the second thing that many people should do, and I should encourage this: play it safe, right? The second point is better than the first, because what happens if you play it safe? You analyze the stock rather than be paralyzed by it, you analyze it. And what happens? You consolidate your accounts, right? I think Mr. Chan has actually mentioned this already, which is very good. You come to a point whereby at least whatever happens, you can weather the storm. You have the cash to conserve, you cut the costs, you're able to wait it out, right? And I think that is a very, very good way of surviving anything. I mean, we don't know how long it comes. A lot of people are saying, hey, don't take this moratorium automated already, and people are saying, oh, I'll still pay my installments. I always tell people, although yes, there is a cost to it, why not take it anyway and save some extra money? Because you never know when this is going to end. So any extra money in the pocket is better than, money out there. If you're in business, same, yes, go small, all right? Reduce yourself, sell to a smaller group of customers, and at least you'll be able to go out there and eventually when the market recovers, you recover the market. So this is, and this is an actual study that's been done. Being in a conservative position gives you a better position as compared to just following market, because we don't know where the market is going. Right, but there's the other one. All right, there's the other one I'm going to share, and I want to do this right now because I'm one of this right now. I'm able to anticipate this and get to this point. And I always tell people, why not go on an offensive? And in offensive, assess the impact rather than just analyze it. Assess the impact and find a new normal. With everything new, I think there's new opportunities. I mean, there is always these new possibilities out there, right? And if we are going out there in a proactive manner and finding those new normals and coming up with new strategies, because in this new environment, in this new strategy, there's new needs, right? There's a valid concern for safety, there's a valid concern for health, but there's also a valid concern for people wanting to go on with their lives. If you're able to provide those in a very safe and confident environment, I think people will thrive. That goes for housing needs and everything else. People still need many of this going on. If you're able to go offensive and then make things happen, I think that, and this is a statistics that many of these companies that actually invest themselves in R&D and moving forward even as me as an investor, right? If you go out there and you find a new way of taking things and in with stride, finding good deals out there, you should be able to go bigger. So I always tell people that there's always three, but this is not easy to do. This really asks you to go against the grains, and you must have the audacity to actually go through the plans. So I would say that, those are the things that I want to share, is that there's always three choices in life, right? And neither one of them is good or bad. It's just a choice, but you have to then actively be responsible for any one of it, right? I think that's one of the reasons why TT Jais has come up with this whole series, is to tell people that there's always the silver linings in the clouds, and if you go out there and reach for it, there's always this possibility of coming out on this crisis as a winner.
Sure,
Right.
sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for that, Michael. Thanks, Mr. Chan, and thanks, Veena, for your time. We really enjoyed the session. So the viewers, I hope you've learned a lot as well from this, all the wisdom, all the experiences, and their thoughts of all the three of them. So, we would like to see you again. We'd like to thank all the speakers, and I'd like to thank TT Jaya as well for organizing this. So I'm David Chong, so signing off. So we'll see you again. Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.